Okay, you want to get started? 7:33. I guess where we left off last time, we had some questions to be brought back to the membership of the fire department. I kind of did a summary of the last meeting. This is the summary from my point of view. Maybe you may remember differently. If there's something you want to add or take off, that's fine. We can probably start there. There's the list of questions on the bottom of it. And maybe we could start with that.
So what are we looking for, Tom? We're looking for answers to
Yes.
these questions.
Yeah, the committee put together these questions at the last meeting. And Joel indicated he'd bring them back to the body of the fire department to get answers from them. So that's where we ended, and that's where we are going to begin tonight. So I guess we'd start with the first question about the audit for review by the committee. The revenue recovery funds to be made available to the committee. Did we get anywhere with that?
No, Tommy, and you were at that meeting, and I didn't ask any of these questions because the purpose of this committee is to move forward. And you had 3 years of audit made available to you, and it was by King & King, and it wasn't an audit, it's a look back. And they had no recommendations from that.
So that's a no then?
That would be a no, correct?
So a roster of the active members in the Morris Volunteer Fire Department.
Correct, and you have that?
I do not, but if you could supply that, please.
I'm sure that you have that, Tommy.
That was one of the questions that the committee was asking for.
I'm sure that you could have provided it in this handout that you created for all of these people.
So
Good
again,
work.
that's a no?
That would be a no, correct?
Let me interject here.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, are you going to participate in good faith? I mean, we asked these questions. You said you needed to go back to your membership to answer some of them. And I see you refuse to ask your membership any of the questions. This is a dialogue.
You
And if
understand?
you're not going to participate in it, then we're all wasting our time.
I agree, we are completely wasting our time.
So where do we go?
Well, do you want to move forward and get a service level agreement with the town and the Morris Fire Department? Or do you want to hash over this old stuff that you were worried about, this look back that you found nothing wrong with from before?
Isn't the purpose of this committee, wasn't it spelled out in that report from
It's
Mr.
right here.
Dorset? And that's what we're doing?
A service level agreement isn't mentioned in any of the charges. It's not there. It's not what the committee's tasked with.
Which page is that you're referring to? Correct, so we answered those first 5 last week. And forge a long-term agreement regarding disposition of revenue recovery funds, and there are no funds. Because if you have no revenue recovery agreement, there's no PSA, there's no incoming money. Complete the application for the primary service area responsor. Well, we don't have to do that because Litchfield's already done it. Make plans for aggressive membership, you're down to number 4. I think that's about where we're at. What would the town of Morris like to do to get more members from the town to join the fire department?
Well, if we back up to charge 1, right? So charge 1 was the disposition of approximately $60,000 of revenue recovery funds withheld by the Morris Volunteer Fire Department.
Right?
So we had talked last meeting about you providing us the bank statements for that so we could see what we had for revenue recovery or what was available, because you had mentioned that you had paid out 2 months to Vintech. And you were going to bring that up to your membership to see if you could provide that to us.
Correct.
And then we had also talked about the roster for the active members, the qualifications of the membership or certifications and where the standing was for that. You were gonna bring up to your membership whether or not they'd be agreeable to return the stretcher. And then we were also looking for updated inventory of equipment and access to maintenance records of the town-owned vehicles. And that's where we had left off, that it was gonna be supplied at this meeting. Is any of that available tonight?
The discussion on the $60,000 is that it was the fire department's property, and as a separate 501c3 organization, you don't really have the right to see that.
We had asked for that, and you were gonna ask your membership.
And I gotta know.
Okay.
I gotta know.
Because on your meeting minutes from when you were gonna ask your membership, and I'm paraphrasing, right? It says that you never brought it up to your membership. That what you brought up to your membership was that you think that if you supply us with these answers, that we're gonna have more questions, and that's gonna lead to more questions, and that's gonna lead to more questions. And so your thought was you weren't gonna didn't wanna be asked any more questions.
Because we wanna move forward with this.
So it's my understanding, and I guess I'm not the only one here, that we're charged with getting through these points as an advisory committee.
And we answered all these questions last week.
Well, some of these questions you had to ask your membership, and it doesn't seem that that was done. So I'm kind of with Bob on this, where I'm sitting here saying, we're charged as an advisory committee to clear up these things, and if you're not gonna ask your membership if they wanna cooperate to clear these things up, what exactly are we doing here? I mean, I appreciate everybody's time here at this table, and there's a lot of experience here, and these people are giving up their time. If we're not gonna go through this process or go through this stuff, I'm not quite sure what it is we're here.
Well, maybe we should ask Ed Dorset what the purpose of this was.
Well, he spelled it out,
Outline.
exactly what the purposes are.
You agreed to it.
I don't see any particular reason to go over where the stretcher is, because it's the town of Morris Fire Department's property.
We had left off, you were going to ask your membership if, what
Right.
their thoughts were, if they were interested in giving that back, but it doesn't seem that that question was ever even posed to your membership.
Well, the general discussion previously was that we would be putting it back in the stretcher in the ambulance when we got the ambulance back.
Well, we had gone over in terms of getting the ambulance back, and you had mentioned at that last meeting, you didn't have the staff, and you didn't want to overrun the staff you did have to get that back. We had left off that we were gonna maybe start with the R1.
So you don't need the ambulance to do an R1. So that answers your question.
But hold on a second, Joel. You were going to ask your membership if they were interested in pursuing that option,
Right.
did you?
And they are not interested.
Okay, so that's part of the dialogue back and forth. So that hasn't been presented to us at all at this point. I just directly asked it and you brought it forward. But 5 minutes ago, you wanted to skip all that and move right to a service level agreement without having us discuss the 4 or 5 points that you were gonna bring to your membership and then bring back to us so that we know where that group stands. How do we move to any type of agreement if we ask questions you indicated had to be presented to your membership, and then you get back and you don't offer any of their discussions, concerns, wants, or desires? You just want to skip right to a service level agreement, which isn't even in the charges for the committee. I'm confused. I mean, we appeared to have an agreement of things that you were going to discuss with your membership, and perhaps you did, but it doesn't appear that it happened in a meeting, or at least one that Tom attended. So can we go down these points and get the answers to those questions, or no? We're just going to skip all
Can I
that?
ask a question? If we work on a proposed service agreement, I see most of these answers being answered if that plan were to come to fruition.
So, but we're not talking about EMS services at all. So what exactly is the contents of an agreement? Is it fire services? What are we talking about?
Why are we, I'm sorry, why are we not talking about EMS?
I think Joel just said that his membership is not interested in providing EMS services.
Well, you understand that LVA has applied for the PSA for the town.
That has nothing to do with it, Joel. You said you had to go back to your people because they had been abused. Those are your words.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I don't know what that abuse is, but you still said you were gonna go back and ask them if EMS services were something they were interested in providing this community.
Well, we're still here doing fire service, and we can't really provide EMS service without either working under Litchfield's PSA or reapplying for the PSA itself.
It really is, step one is, does your group, does your membership want to look past these alleged abuses and discuss providing those services for the community?
It's a long-term process, and
But it's a simple answer. They either would like to pursue that, and then we work through the process, or they don't want to pursue that. That was the question. That was what you said you had to ask of them, because they felt they had been abused.
Well, let's back up one step, right? So in terms of the stuff we asked to be brought tonight and that you had agreed you were gonna ask your membership, I think some of the simple stuff, for instance, inventory and maintenance records, right? Let's go back to the reasons we asked those, okay? Those are town trucks, right? The town budgets for maintenance of those vehicles. The town pays for a clerk to keep a record of the maintenance of those vehicles. It's not out of the realm for us to ask for those records to be provided.
It's not only not out of the realm, it's Tom's job to ensure that that maintenance is being done, or that the funds from the town are being used for what they were assigned to.
I don't believe it's Tom's job at all. He's the first selectman, he has enough things over here to deal with, rather than making more work for himself. and
You don't
being
think that
over
the
there.
oversight of town funds falls under the selectmen's purview?
I go to the Board of Finance and get a budget. I answer to the Board of Finance for that budget, up until last year when suddenly it changed.
You think it's inappropriate for the selectmen to ask for documentation of maintenance on town-owned equipment and how funds are expended?
No, I do not.
Okay. So isn't that what we asked for?
Doesn't the treasurer have all the?
Excuse me, excuse me.
No talking.
Talk.
Do you have maintenance records available?
There are some maintenance truck records available.
There are some maintenance records available, or all the maintenance records for the equipment are available?
There's only some.
And what some?
Well, we had a break-in and someone stole 2 years of truck maintenance records.
Was reported to the police, I assume?
Yep.
Is there an investigation?
Well, that's a good question. It's truck records that have no value. The state police came and filled out a report and asked if we had any information to make sure that we let them know.
There was a physical break-in to the fire department
There's 2 years of records that are missing.
from the office in the fire department
That's correct.
that is alarmed and has cameras.
Cameras have recently been installed, yes.
Yet there's no recording of any issue with the alarm or...
No, when you turn off the alarm, it turns off, they don't say what area it goes to. When you go in the building, it says person A entered. When they leave, it says person B left. It doesn't say what location or anything.
But the office is alarmed separately from the rest of the building.
But the alarm doesn't make a different section. It doesn't say office, it doesn't say front door.
Interesting.
So we have 2 years of records, but the balance are available.
Correct.
Interesting that when we asked for those last meeting, there was never a mention of missing records due to a theft.
Yeah, well, when we left, we went over there and they were looking for the records, and that's when the theft was brought to our attention.
This was when?
Right after our meeting last time. And as I recall, Tommy was one that pushed for having those records ready.
Yeah.
So
I've
what
been
about-
asking for about 18 months.
How long have the cameras been installed?
last week.
So what about an inventory of equipment that we had asked for last week? Do you have that maybe you can provide to us?
That's available, that's on computer, correct?
Okay.
Can,
And
can I ask a question? What is the town gonna do with that?
with the inventory of equipment?
Correct. I understand that it's necessary for the town to know that the equipment's been maintained and truck checks have been done and maintenance has been done. But what are you gonna do with it?
You know, as far as the inventory, that is inventory for the town, is it Gatsby? You do an inventory of all your shovels, your rakes, every piece of town-owned equipment needs to be inventoried.
Okay.
It needs to be reported
Report to who?
to the auditors, so they can
Okay.
review it, to whoever reviews the Gatsby report. There's depreciation, it's all in the value. So, you know, say we have $20,000 worth of radios. Well, do we still have $20,000 worth of radios?
Okay.
That should be known. Is there an issue with the town knowing what equipment it
Not,
has?
not at all. The town should know.
I agree.
But I don't know why
But I just explained why.
you need the actual physical, I mean,
Like an inventory list?
yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Especially if there was a recent break-in.
Well, someone broke in and stole the ambulance, and that wasn't inventory.
No one broke into the ambulance, Joel.
Sure.
You might want to check that.
Mm-hmm. I called the police, they weren't interested.
Exactly. So simple things that are being asked for, that can easily be provided, are not being provided.
It speaks to the transparency of the relationship between the town and the fire department. It's a basic stepping stone to how we rebuild the relationship. The town has asked for some things which are inconsequential in value, but it provides a footing for us to say we can work together. It's a simple request, and it's been stonewalled for no good reason.
Well, you understand, we spend a lot of time over there, and this is all more time that we have to spend away from our
Joel, that's
houses.
not what you said last time, though.
But the more things you require from us, the more things that we're gonna have to do, and we have enough of our own things to do.
You already said you did an inventory list.
Correct.
To press a button, to send it from over there to here, doesn't require a lot of time. Am I correct?
I would think it shouldn't be that difficult.
I wouldn't think so. Maintenance of town vehicles, those records are kept in, I'm assuming, a file cabinet, easy enough to pick up. I'd be happy to make the trek across the park to pick it up and bring it back,
Sure, you're not gonna keep those for 3 or 4 months like you did last time.
only as long as needed.
You know what, Tom? I don't know. Between, bogus agendas and emails with name calling, it really, in my opinion, the chiefs got just nothing but contempt for what we're trying to do here. And I don't have the time to waste on this. I really don't. So we're either gonna do this in good faith, and we're gonna provide each other the answers that we request of each other, or I can't participate in this. Are you gonna do that, Joel?
I have something, just a comment regarding records, inventory, rosters, things like that. I would think if the town, first off, the maintenance records should never leave the firehouse. They need to be there in case there's an issue, and within the chief's grasp at all times. So if the town would want to come over and see them or to
Copies could be made, that'd be
make
great.
copies, and the town pays for the person to make the copies.
We do.
We pay for the
You
clerk.
know, then I would think that hopefully Joel would be willing to meet somebody at that time. But records like that should never leave the files of the firehouse. And take a chance of getting misplaced or mixed up. If something happens during an incident, they have to be immediately at the chief's fingertips. So those shouldn't leave. Roster of active members, I'm not quite sure why you would need that. All you need is a total of how many members you have. And, so you know where your numbers are. But
Actually, the roster of active members, workman's compensation.
the fire chief.
Wouldn't you agree?
I don't know, I've never sent my town a roster of my own.
We handle the workman's
And they're all
compensation
covered.
here at the town hall.
Yeah, so there's.
And we need that active member list for workman's compensation.
I don't know,
Well,
my
that's-
town has never asked me for that.
that's how
and
this
I have
town-
people who have been covered under workers' comp,
Yep.
so as long as they're listed as a member in our fire department records, that's all that's needed. So I'm not quite sure
Well, that's,
what the difference is.
towns work
between the
differently,
towns.
obviously, and this is how this town is working.
Um, The list of qualifications and certifications of members, the chief has those in his files, I'm certain. So if they were needed, again, he could give you totals on how many interior people he has and how many exterior he has. You know, how many fire police he might have or EMS people he
And we haven't gotten those answers,
have, just to get totals.
even for the personnel, because I did receive 22, requests for 22 physicals for the fire department. And I kind of asked why, because we don't have 22 active members that were working in fire. And I got different answers. So it's really hard to know who are we actually providing physicals for.
Is there 20, excuse me, Joel, is there 22 members total?
22 members total, I'm sure there are.
I
And
don't see
6
what-
were considered EMS, and we don't provide EMS.
It's the same physicals that we have for
But we
exterior.
don't provide EMS.
But
And
it's-
this is why you start running into these issues, right?
Trying to
If we're doing
provide
this,
EMS.
who's certified for interior, who's certified for exterior?
What does that have to do with your physicals?
The cost?
And when we send people down, they get the physical that we require of them.
Yeah, I need to know the cost. That's
And
what I'm looking
we'll,
at.
we'll send you the total of X amount of interior firemen and X amount of exterior firemen. And it's the
We've
same
got-
physical as exterior firemen as EMS.
We've gotten to this point because of the lack of transparency.
And that's a problem.
And I don't think it's out of the town's realm to ask who's certified if we paid for that certification and training. Correct? That the town does pay for it?
Correct.
So why is it outside the town's purview to understand what we paid for?
Well, not only that, on the initial charge from at Dorset, you know, there's the talk of tax abatement, right? Where your service you get tax abatement for, assuming you hold certain certification and you make the allotted points in the year, right? Well, if we don't have that list of active members and their certifications, technically, we're not able to determine if they get the tax abatement or not.
Well, technically you have nothing to do with that. Because the executive committee, and I know you want to think you do, but you do not. The executive committee of the fire department sends over an approved list. That's how it was written in the tax abatement. We confirm the list and we send the list over. And that list has never been questioned in 20-some odd years.
There can be supporting backup documentation for that.
And it has never been provided in 20-some odd years. And no one has ever asked a question. When we give you the information, if you have a question, you could ask, and you've never asked.
We're asking.
But again, when we provide you with a list, it's the list of people that meet the qualifications for the tax abatement. And we give Nancy the list of the points, and she has all that stuff at her fingertips.
She's still waiting for the pension list. Is she gonna receive that?
Yes.
It was supposed to be last week. Correct? I can see the other board members kind of wonder why there's this, issue, this friction between the fire department and management here. I mean, I'm sure you have it in your packet there, and this is kind of the atmosphere that's been growing within the fire department. Simply this. You see this. This is an email from the clerk of the fire department to the membership. I can read it for you if you'd like.
Oh, I have one here.
Referring to the first selectman as the idiot king. And again, later on in the email as idiot. This is what this leadership of the fire department has fostered within their own department. the chief's report on an agenda sent by the clerk, I believe. Communications with town/hostage negotiations. This is the type of atmosphere that's being fostered within the fire department. Go over to the bulletin board at the fire department. Little counter. Someone's got a good sense of humor. This is the type of attitude that's being fostered by this leadership within the fire department. If you wonder why there's a little friction going on, don't look too far.
Well,
You go a little bit further and look at the emails, the replies from Chief Joel Skillen to emails from myself. Joel called OSHA and filed a complaint against the fire department regarding maintenance of the vehicles. OSHA came in, OSHA came in, they did their investigation, they met with Joel and Albert. Didn't really ask anything of me. And I finally reached out to Scott Adams, the OSHA officer, and I said, hey, have you wrapped up? Are you done? He goes, yeah, we'd like to set up a meeting. I said, okay, I'm open anytime. I tried to reach out to Mr. Skilton to set up that meeting. And he said, please don't try and schedule for the rest of us. Kind of a snarky response. So I left it up to Mr. Skilton and the OSHA officer to set up the meeting. I said, I'll attend whenever you guys decide when that meeting is. FEMA grant application. I reached out to Mr. Skilton. Would you like to enter in, try to get this grant from the FEMA? I believe you have this page, correct? Joel responds, well, Erica, who is my running mate and fellow select person, Joel says, Erica has publicly bragged that she'd help us with grants. Have her and Ed, who's her father and the one who did the report for the fire department here, have her and Ed work on it. They obviously have nothing else to do, or with all the free time you have, meaning myself, with your part-time job as first selectman, you could work on it. I see that this was sent directly to you from FEMA. Thank you for pursuing. I reached out to Mr. Skilton again and said, Joel, be happy to work with you on this. And again, he responds, with all the free time there is governing Morris, I expect you would have most of it filled out. One of the items FEMA wants all town employees trained in NIMS. Check on those employees required to have that. This is the type of response I've been getting from Chief Joel Skilton for about a year and a half, almost 2 years now. This is what I have to work with.
Well,
I reached out to Chief Joel Skilton and then President Kevin Durone. I was instructed by OEMS to do a LEMS plan, Local Emergency Medical Services Plan, LEMS. I reached out to them a number of times for their assistance in this plan. You'd think they'd be part of it since at that time they had the PSA. No. They refused. Never got back for a date to sit down and work on it. Never offered anything to move it forward.
well, you understand, Tommy, that was due by October 10th, and you sent it to us the first week of January.
And it was still due.
And it was still due, and we have a lot of things to do, apparently like with our jobs and our real lives and other things.
Okay.
So if you're over here and it gets sent directly to you, and it's through your office, and it says the contact person is the first selectman, then you can probably do a lot of it. Did you do any of it?
I did it all.
So I know you filled out the
I did it
local
all.
emergency medical
I
thing.
did it all, and I submitted to OEMS.
Yep. And it's also incorrect, because that was when we still had it. Did you submit a new one?
That's not my job now.
Well, it's.
You should know that.
It is your job.
It is your
No,
job.
The local emergency
Well,
EMS plan is
Working
the town's
with,
job.
working with the current TSA holder, yes.
Well, and you see, Tom, a lot of these things we never were required to do, but now you keep asking for more and more. And we still have all the same things to do to keep track of our own side of the street. And pursuing all these things and helping you, I just don't have time for.
So I'm looking at this list that this committee asked you to go back and get questions answered for. I don't see a large volume of work going on here. simple questions, poll your membership at that meeting that I attended, and get the answers. I don't think that's a lot of work to do. I don't think we're asking for too much.
Well, we still show up and do fire. How much more do you want us to do?
Answer the questions?
What's the town's plan? What would you like to do with fire or EMS? Do you want us to pursue the EMS?
I'd love to see, as we spoke at the last meeting, there was a question you were going to have to ask your body to answer. How about the R1?
Well, from what I understand, you already applied with LVA and they were accepted as the R1.
I did not apply with LVA, but I believe LVA applied.
And you signed off approving it.
And I also believe that you and Mr. Derone sat down with the chief of LVA some months ago and had a discussion with Chief Diario to perhaps find a way to get the R1 back in Morris. And she indicated her thought that it would be a good thing, and perhaps you could bring it back to your membership. Did you do that?
I did not.
And why not? You could work with the PSA holder at the time, get the R1 back into Morris.
Our members were very aware they could join Litchfield, and we don't have to do any work over here. They can join Litchfield and work for the town of Morris as a Litchfield member.
That's not the question, Joe.
Yes, but they could do that if they would like to help the
So you didn't want to
town
move
of
forward
Morris.
with an R1 at that time, and you don't want to do it now.
I would be hesitant.
I know you have to sell it or be sold on it, but you were supposed to bring it back to your body and talk about it.
Well, what's the town interested in doing to encourage us to do this?
What do you need?
Well, yes. Oh, and on this little report you had, it would have been good if we had this in advance, so we could have been a little more aware of it.
Is there something else we don't have?
Sure.
So, like I said before, I think that if the ambulance service were to come back to Morris, a lot of these questions that we're asking would be answered. I know Joel indicated last month that staffing was an issue, but I came up with an outline that I think may work. Using the numbers that I was told, the last contract with Vintech last year, when the staffing was here for 12 hours a day, was approximately $190,000. I understand that Morris is paying LVA $215,000 currently for EMS service.
We're not paying LVA, no. You're paying Vintech for daytime
Okay,
service.
for approximately $215,000.
Vintech's about $190,000.